Before that afternoon, Tomi wasn't just my friend. She was my sister. We met during our NYSC year in Ibadan, and somehow in the chaos of posting and redeployment, found each other again in Lagos. When I got married, Tomi was my maid of honor. When I gave birth, she was the first person to hold Noah after my mother. That's how close we were. So when I resumed work 3 months after maternity leave, leaving Noah with Tomi during the day felt natural. She worked remotely and her flat was just 2 streets away. It was supposed to be temporary, just until I found a nanny I could trust. Each morning I would drop Noah off around 7:30 a.m., kiss his soft cheeks, and rush to the bus stop. I always returned before 5. Tomi never complained. "Don't worry, Grace," she would say, smiling. "Noah and I understand each other." At first, everything seemed perfect. Noah would giggle when I came to pick him up, his eyes bright, his belly round. Tomi kept sending photos. Him sleeping, him playing, him smiling with mashed pop all over his chin. It warmed my heart. But slowly, tiny things began to feel off. One evening when I reached for Noah, he turned away and stretched his arms toward Tomi instead. I laughed it off, but something in me tightened. Another time, I noticed the feeding bottles I packed were still full, though Noah looked content and full. "Tomi," I asked gently, "he didn't drink much today." She smiled, glancing at the baby. "He preferred the pop, maybe." I nodded, but inside I wondered. My mom always said a mother's instincts never lie. A week later, Tomi began suggesting I leave Noah longer. "You rush home so fast," she said one Friday. "You should rest or see your husband before coming. I'll handle Noah till night." I thanked her, but my heart twitched. I told my husband Dele about it, and he laughed. "You women," he said, stretching on the sofa. "Tomi's doing you a favor, and you're suspecting her." Maybe he was right, I thought. But the next day, something else happened. That Saturday morning, I went to Tomi's to pick up Noah's forgotten blanket. She didn't expect me. I didn't knock. We had that kind of friendship. As I opened the door, a strange silence met me. The curtains were half drawn, sunlight sneaking through. I heard a soft hum from the sitting room, a tune I didn't recognize. Then Noah's small whimper. I stepped forward, quietly. My heart pounded, though I didn't know why. "Tomi," I called softly. No answer. The hum stopped. For a second, everything went still. Just the ceiling fan ticking slowly. Then I heard a faint shuffling from inside her bedroom. That's when my phone rang, my husband calling. The sound made me jump. I quickly muted it. I didn't want to startle her, though I couldn't explain why I felt like I was trespassing. I tiptoed closer. From the half-open door, I could see Tomi's back. She was sitting on the edge of her bed, cradling Noah, her head bent low as if comforting him. I smiled to myself, ready to step in. But then I froze. Something didn't look right. Noah's crying had stopped completely, replaced by soft, sucking sounds, rhythmic, deep, steady. My breath caught. No, it couldn't be. I blinked, stepping closer, peering through the narrow gap of the door, and that was the moment my entire body went cold. I couldn't move. My mind froze, every instinct screaming, "Step back, don't watch, don't believe it." But my legs were rooted to the floor. Tomi's back was still turned. She hummed softly, a lullaby-like tune, and Noah's tiny hands rested against her chest. My chest tightened. I wanted to scream, to storm in, to demand answers. But something held me back. Disbelief, confusion, fear. For a long moment,
I just watched, trying to process what I was seeing. Finally, I found my voice, trembling. "Tommy?" She froze. Her hands paused mid-motion. Slowly, she turned her head. Her eyes widened, but not with guilt, only surprise. "Grace," she whispered, soft, almost pleading. I stepped fully into the room. "Tommy, what are you doing?" She swallowed, looking down at Noah. He was crying. He wouldn't take the bottle or the pap. He was hungry. I didn't know what else to do. I could feel my heartbeat hammering, conflicting emotions tangled inside me. Fear, anger, confusion, and an irrational warmth that whispered, she only wanted to help. I left you with him for a few hours, Tommy. Why didn't you call me?" She shook her head. "I didn't want to bother you. You've been so stressed, Grace. I wanted to help. He was fussy, and I remembered my sister's baby when I... Her voice trailed off. She looked guilty, but sincere. I took a step closer, trying to steady my racing thoughts. "Tommy, you can't... That's not how it works. You're not his mother. I know you love him, but... No, she interrupted, tears brimming. "I know. I didn't mean anything wrong. I love him. I love him like he's mine sometimes." I wanted to scream, to shake her, to make her understand how wrong this felt. But as I looked at Noah, calm now, safe in her arms, my anger softened, replaced by a deep confusion. I sank into the chair, my mind spinning. Everything about our friendship had been real, but in this moment, everything felt uncertain. After a long silence, I finally asked, trembling, "Tommy, promise me this. It won't happen again. You can comfort him, hold him, play with him, but never feed him like that again. Do you understand?" She nodded vigorously, eyes wide. "I promise, Grace. I swear." I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. Still, I left her apartment that day with a strange weight on my chest. I called my husband, telling him I would be home soon, and he picked up the phone immediately. "Grace, is everything okay?" Dele asked. I need to talk to you when I get home," I said, voice low. That night, lying in bed beside him, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the image of Tommy holding Noah, humming that tune, eyes wide with guilt and love. It was innocent in her mind, terrifying in mine, and I knew deep down things would never be the same. Tommy's love for my son was real, but my trust in her had shifted, just slightly, yet irreversibly. Motherhood was teaching me lessons I never expected. Even friends you trust most can cross lines, intentionally or not, that change everything. The next morning, I knew I couldn't avoid it. I couldn't act like nothing happened. Tommy had crossed a line, even if she didn't mean to. I walked to her flat, my stomach twisting. Every step was heavy. I rehearsed what I would say, though I knew words could never match what I felt. When she opened the door, she looked like she had expected me. Her eyes, wide and nervous, met mine. "Grace?" she said, softly. I didn't answer immediately. I stepped inside, taking in the familiar sight of her living room. Sunlight spilling through the curtains. Everything looked ordinary, almost peaceful. Almost. I closed the door behind me. "We need to talk," I said firmly, but my voice wavered. She nodded. I know.
We sat on opposite sides of her sofa, Noah playing quietly in his cot, oblivious to the tension. I took a deep breath. Tommy, yesterday, what you did, I can't just pretend it didn't happen. Her hands twisted in her lap. I know, Grace, I know. I'm so sorry. I didn't think. He was crying and I couldn't help it. I leaned forward. Tommy, I trusted you. I left him with you because I knew you'd care for him. But you went beyond that. You can't feed him. That's my role. That's his mother's role. She nodded again, tears brimming. I understand now. I really do. I never wanted to hurt your trust. I love him, Grace. I can't help it. But I won't cross that line again. I promise. Her words were sincere. I could see it in her eyes. But trust, once shaken, doesn't rebuild overnight. I exhaled slowly. We have to set boundaries, Tommy, for both our sakes and for Noah's. You can play with him, bathe him, read to him. But feeding him, that's mine. Only mine. She looked down, then nodded. Yes, only yours. I understand. We sat in silence for a few moments. The tension didn't vanish completely, but the acknowledgement of the line we had crossed hung in the air like a fragile truce. As I left her flat that afternoon, I glanced back. Tommy waved weakly, smiling through tears. I wanted to feel relief. I wanted to tell myself everything was fine. But deep inside, I knew this would stay with me. The memory of seeing her hold him like that, the rhythm, the hum, the quiet intensity, would replay in my mind for days. Even now as I write this, I can feel the lingering echo of that afternoon. Friendship and trust are delicate things. They can be strengthened, yes, but once crossed, the shadow of doubt never completely leaves. And motherhood? Motherhood teaches lessons no one can prepare you for. About love, about fear, and about the people you hold closest to your heart. The following days were strange. Tommy continued to care for Noah, but everything felt different. There was a quiet tension between us, subtle and persistent, like a shadow lingering in the room. I found myself watching her, unconsciously, whenever she held him or rocked him to sleep. My chest tightened at the sight of her humming lullabies, the same ones she'd sung that fateful afternoon. And yet, I couldn't deny that Noah adored her. He reached for her with the same eagerness he had for me, his little fingers curling around her hands. I saw his trust, his comfort, and a small part of me wanted to let go of my fear. But the memory of that afternoon wouldn't leave me. The image of her cradling him, humming softly, was seared in my mind. One evening after work, I decided it was time to talk openly. We sat in her living room, the baby asleep in the cot. I tried to calm my racing thoughts, took a deep breath, and said, Tommy, I need to know something. I need to be sure. Can I trust you completely with Noah? She looked at me, eyes wide and serious. Grace, you can. I understand now. I won't cross the line again. I swear it. I love him, yes, but I will respect your role as his mother. I nodded slowly, but my mind was still unsettled. Trust is not something restored with words alone. It is earned, slowly, cautiously. Okay, I said finally. We'll try, but I need clear boundaries. No more feeding, no matter what. Understood? She nodded, tears glimmering. Understood. Over the next few weeks, I tested the boundaries I had set. I observed subtly. I asked questions. I monitored how she comforted him, how she played with him, and how she managed his routines. And gradually, I began to relax. Just a little.
But motherhood is full of uncertainty. Every sound, every cough, every whimper of the baby triggers a storm of emotions. Even as I tried to trust her, I felt a gnawing anxiety whenever she held him. I realized that trust is not simply given, it is fragile, and even the strongest friendships can be shaken by one moment of crossing lines.
Then one afternoon, as I returned from work, I noticed something that made my heart skip a beat. Tommy was sitting on the sofa, Noah asleep on her lap. She looked up and smiled warmly as I entered. "Hey, Grace," she said softly. I forced a calm expression. "Hi, how was his nap?" "He slept well," she replied. "I read to him for a bit. He was calm." I exhaled slowly, relieved. And then, unconsciously, I noticed the way she held him. Careful, gentle, but instinctively protective. And for the first time since that afternoon, I thought, maybe this could work. Maybe trust could be rebuilt. But deep down, I knew one thing. I would never forget that first sight of her holding Noah, the hum of her voice, the intimacy of that moment. Some boundaries once crossed leave marks that never fully fade. It started with a phone call that made my stomach twist. "Tommy," I said, breathless from rushing home. "Yes, Grace?" Her voice was calm, almost too calm. "Where's Noah?" My heart raced. There was a pause. Then she answered, "He's fine. I had to take him to my mother's for a short while. She wanted to see him." I froze. My mind spun. She hadn't told me she was taking him out. Not even a text. "Tommy," I yelled. "You can't do that. You have to call me first. He's my son." I know," she cried softly. I wanted to make sure he saw my mother. Please, Grace, don't be mad. He was safe." I wanted to scream, to shake her, to demand answers. But then I paused, seeing the desperation in her eyes. She wasn't trying to hurt me. She just acted before thinking. When I arrived at her mother's place, I saw Noah in her arms, sleeping peacefully. Tommy looked at me, guilt written on her face. "Grace," she whispered, "I shouldn't have done it without telling you. I'm sorry." I took a deep breath. He was fine. Nothing had happened, but the trust, that fragile, delicate trust, had wavered again. That night, I sat with Dele, my husband, and tried to explain. It's not just about what she did, it's the line, the trust. I can't stop thinking about that first day, the way she held him, the rhythm. Dele nodded slowly. "I understand, but you also need to see that she cares. She loves him. She didn't mean harm. Maybe she just doesn't know her limits yet." I knew he was right, but seeing Tommy's love for Noah was like a double-edged sword. It was beautiful and terrifying, all at once. The next morning, I decided to act, not out of anger, but to protect what was mine, and to rebuild what could still be salvaged. I went to Tommy's flat. This time I spoke calmly, but firmly. "Tommy, I can't live in fear that something will happen. You care for him, and I trust you to play, to comfort, to love him. But never again make decisions like yesterday without telling me first. Do you understand?" She nodded immediately, tears in her eyes. "I understand. I promise. I'll never do it again." I watched her closely. Her sincerity was unmistakable. Slowly, I felt the weight in my chest begin to lift. We hugged, carefully, cautiously, but genuinely. For the first time since that first afternoon, I allowed myself to hope. Maybe, just maybe, our friendship could survive this. But even as I left, walking back to my apartment, a small voice whispered in my mind. Some boundaries once crossed leave echoes that never fully fade. And as I glanced back at Tommy's flat, I knew that motherhood would constantly test me, my patience, my trust, and my heart in ways I had never imagined. The days after that confrontation felt different.
Tommy was careful now, consciously respecting the boundaries we had set. She played with Noah, sang to him, read stories, and held him close, but never crossed the line again. For my part, I had to let go of some of my anxiety. I watched her interactions, measuring each movement, each gesture. Slowly, my fear gave way to cautious trust. One afternoon, as I prepared Noah's lunch, Tommy came over with a small tray of mashed pap and fruits. She smiled nervously. "I made this for him," she said softly. "Thought you might like a hand." I smiled back, reaching for the tray. "Thank you, Tommy. He'll love this." She handed it to me, and for the first time, it felt like a true partnership, one built on honesty, care, and the lessons of the past. That evening, after Noah slept, we sat together, sharing a quiet cup of tea. "Grace," Tommy said, her voice low, "I know I made mistakes. I never wanted to hurt you or betray your trust. I just care for him so much." "I know," I replied softly. "I know you do, and that's why I can forgive you. But we both have to remember our roles, for his sake and for ours." She nodded, tears glimmering. "I promise I will always respect that." I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The tension that had haunted me for weeks began to dissolve. In the following months, things gradually returned to normal. Noah thrived, happy and secure. Tommy and I rebuilt our friendship, stronger this time because it was tempered by experience, honesty, and clear boundaries. I learned a powerful lesson. Love can be complicated. It can blur lines, test limits, and challenge trust. But with communication and sincerity, even the most delicate relationships can survive. Sometimes when I watch Tommy rocking Noah gently in her arms, I still remember that first afternoon, the shock, the unbelief, the fear. But now those memories are tempered with understanding. Motherhood, friendship, and trust, they are fragile, but when nurtured with care, they can endure, thrive, and grow even stronger after the hardest tests. And as I tuck Noah into bed each night, I feel a quiet gratitude for the lessons learned, the boundaries respected, and the love that continues to grow, safe, steadfast, and enduring.
Thanks for watching. What has this story taught you? Drop your comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories.